At a restaurant, the waiter slipped me the bill with a folded note. I opened it and read 4 words that made my heart stop. Leave through the kitchen. Confused, I looked up at him and whispered, "Why?" He leaned closer and said just 1 word, "Now." Seconds later, the front door was blocked. If you love stories that keep you hooked from the very first moment, subscribe to my channel and comment where you're watching from. My name is Isabella Marquez, but everyone calls me Izzy. I'm 24, and this happened on what was supposed to be a happy night with my family. My mom, Elena, had just gotten a promotion at work, and my little sister Maya and I decided to take her out to celebrate. We chose a family-owned Italian restaurant in town, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths, the smell of garlic bread drifting from the kitchen, and soft music playing in the background. The place was warm and crowded, full of families and couples enjoying dinner. It felt safe, familiar, and comforting. My mom was glowing with pride that night. She's worked hard her whole life, raising us on her own after my dad left. Elena is strong but kind, the type of person who gives everything to the people she loves. I wanted her to enjoy this night without worries. Maya, my 17-year-old sister, sat across from me rolling her eyes at my mom's long stories, but smiling anyway. She has a sharp tongue but a good heart. She teases me constantly, yet she's the one who always sneaks into my room when she's scared of thunderstorms. As we laughed over plates of pasta and toasted to my mom's success, I remember thinking how rare and perfect the moment felt. For once, there were no deadlines, no stress, no heavy thoughts, just family, food, and the feeling that nothing could touch us. I had no idea that within minutes, everything would change. The same night that began with laughter and garlic bread would end with fear, confusion, and a desperate escape through the back of that restaurant. The night felt ordinary until the moment the bill came. Our waiter, Daniel, approached the table with his usual polite smile, but something in his eyes was different. His face looked tight, his movements quick, as if he wanted to get away from us as fast as possible. He placed the check holder in front of me and gave a short nod. I thought nothing of it until I opened it. Inside, next to the receipt, was a folded piece of paper. At first, I assumed it was a coupon or some promotion the restaurant was handing out, but when I unfolded it, my stomach dropped. The handwriting was hurried, the ink slightly smudged, as if written in panic. Leave through the kitchen. Don't look back. I froze. My fingers tightened on the note. For a second, I thought maybe it was some kind of prank, but when I looked up at Daniel, he was staring at me, his expression urgent. I mouthed the word, "Why?" His jaw clenched. He leaned in slightly and whispered 1 word that made my blood run cold. "Now." The sound of that single word lodged itself in my chest. My mom noticed the sudden change in my expression. "Izzy, what is it?" she asked, her voice low but concerned. I slid the note under the edge of my plate, not wanting Maya to panic. My little sister noticed anyway. "What's going on?" Before I could answer, the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted. The front door slammed open hard enough to rattle the glasses on the tables. 3 men stepped inside. They weren't dressed in uniforms or masks, but something about their presence felt wrong. Their eyes swept the room in sharp, deliberate motions, like they were looking for someone. The tallest of the 3 moved to the center of the entrance and stood there, broad shoulders blocking the only way out. The quiet murmur of conversation in the restaurant died instantly. Forks stopped midair. Chairs stopped moving. A heavy silence spread through the room. My mom's hand reached across the table for mine, her grip firm. Maya's leg bounced nervously under the table as she whispered, "Izzy, who are they?" I didn't answer because I didn't know. All I knew was that Daniel's warning had been real, and whatever was about to happen, it was dangerous enough for him to risk slipping me that note. The men at the front scanned the restaurant with eyes that didn't miss a single face. They weren't here for food. They were here for control. One of them muttered something to the hostess, who looked pale and terrified as she shook her head and backed away. Another man stepped to the side, standing near the door like a guard. Daniel reappeared near the bar, pretending to clear glasses, but his eyes flicked to me again. He gave the smallest nod toward the swinging door that led to the kitchen. The signal was clear. He wanted us to leave, quietly now, before it was too late. My mom leaned closer, her whisper sharp. "What did the note say, Izzy?" I swallowed hard. "He wants us to go through the kitchen." Maya's eyes widened. "Why? What's happening?" Before I could answer, the tallest man at the door raised his voice, low but commanding. "Nobody leaves." The room stiffened. The other two men began moving between the tables, scanning faces, checking the corners. My heart hammered so loudly I thought everyone around me could hear it. I knew if we stayed seated, we would eventually be noticed. And once their attention landed on us, I had no idea what would happen. Daniel brushed past our table, pretending to refill a nearby glass of water, and muttered quickly under his breath, "Trust me, move when they're distracted." Then he was gone again, leaving me staring at my mom and sister, my mind spinning. Every part of me wanted to jump up, grab their hands and run, but fear held me in place. What if moving made us stand out? What if leaving drew their attention faster? At the same time, staying felt like waiting for a storm to break. Directly over our heads, Maya clutched my sleeve, whispering, "Izzy, I don't like this. What do we do?" I squeezed her hand, trying to look calm even though I wasn't. "We listened to him," I whispered. The men continued their slow prowl through the dining room, their voices sharp as they questioned random diners. A chair scraped loudly in the back, and everyone jumped. The tension was unbearable. My mom's jaw was tight, her voice steady as she finally said, "Izzy, if we're going, it has to be now." I glanced one more time at Daniel. He caught my eye, nodded, and tilted his head toward the kitchen door. My decision was made. My mom's eyes locked with mine across the table, and in that look I saw both fear and determination. She had always been the one who stayed calm when things went wrong, the one who made the hard decisions when nobody else could. Her grip on my hand tightened, and she whispered, "Izzy, we can't just sit here." Maya's face was pale. "What if they see us?" she asked, her voice barely above a breath. She glanced toward the men prowling the dining room. One of them had started asking a couple near the door sharp questions, while the other leaned over a booth, scanning the faces of the people sitting there. Every second they spent moving closer felt like a noose tightening around our table. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "If we wait, they'll come to us." Daniel said to trust him. "We don't have a choice." My mom nodded once, quick and sharp. That was all the confirmation I needed. I turned to Maya, who was shaking her head, her fingers clutching her fork like a weapon. "Listen to me," I whispered. "Stay close. Don't let go of my hand, no matter what." Maya's lips trembled, but she nodded. Daniel's timing was perfect. As one of the men raised his voice toward another table, demanding to know someone's name, all heads in the restaurant turned toward the commotion. The noise, the sudden burst of tension, gave us a small window. Daniel passed by again, carrying a tray, and with a subtle tilt of his chin, motioned toward the kitchen door. "Now," I whispered. We slid out of the booth as quietly as we could. My mom kept her hand on Maya's shoulder, gently steering her forward. I led the way, every step echoing in my ears even though the room was loud. I could feel the weight of the note in my pocket, like it was burning a hole through the fabric. The path to the kitchen wasn't far, but it felt like a mile. Each table we passed felt like a spotlight. Every time one of the men shifted in our direction, my heart nearly stopped. My breath caught when the tallest one scanned the room again, his eyes brushing dangerously close to us. "Keep walking," my mom urged softly. We were halfway there when a tray of glasses crashed to the ground behind us. The sharp sound shattered the air, making everyone in the restaurant jump. My blood froze. For a split second, I was sure it had given us away. I looked back and saw Daniel standing near the spill, holding his hands up as if it had been an accident. He caught my eye again and gave the smallest nod, as though saying, "Go, don't stop." The swinging kitchen door was just ahead now, lit by the glow spilling out from the other side. I reached for it, my palm slick with sweat. With one quick push, we slipped through. The kitchen was hot, alive with steam and noise. Pots clattered, orders were being shouted in Spanish and English, and cooks moved quickly from one station to the next. For a moment, the chaos shielded us. Nobody questioned why we were there. To them, we were just another part of the constant motion. But the relief was short-lived. My mom leaned close, her voice steady but firm. "Where's the back exit?" I scanned the room, my heart pounding. Toward the far corner, I spotted a red emergency exit sign glowing above a door. That was our way out, but it wasn't close. We would have to cross the length of the kitchen to get there. Daniel appeared again, pushing past a rack of dishes, his face pale with urgency. "This way," he hissed, gesturing toward the same door I'd spotted. "Don't stop for anything." We followed him, weaving between busy cooks and clattering trays. My mom stayed right behind me, steering Maya forward. The heat and noise of the kitchen wrapped around us, but all I could hear was the pounding of my heart in my ears. Halfway across, the swinging door behind us burst open. One of the men from the front stormed in, his eyes scanning the kitchen with sharp, dangerous focus. The clatter of pots stopped. A cook cursed under his breath. The air turned heavy, tense, as if everyone in the room sensed the danger immediately. Daniel turned his head slightly toward us, his voice a harsh whisper. "Don't look back. Keep moving." I gripped Maya's hand tighter and pushed forward, my legs moving faster even as fear threatened to lock them in place. I could hear the man's footsteps behind us, heavy and quick. My skin prickled as I imagined his eyes sweeping the room, narrowing in on us, realizing what we were doing. The emergency exit loomed ahead, closer now, just a few more steps. My mom's breath was ragged behind me, Maya's hand trembling in mine. I could feel the chase building, the moment when everything would snap into motion. This was it, the choice Daniel had forced into our hands. Trust him completely and run, or hesitate and risk being caught. I didn't hesitate. I pushed toward the door with everything in me, knowing the next few seconds would change everything. The emergency exit was just ahead, glowing red like a lifeline in the chaos of the kitchen. I pulled Maya with me, my chest heaving, every step feeling heavier than the last. My mom was right behind us, her breath sharp, her hand pressed against Maya's back to keep her moving. The sounds of the kitchen, the clatter of pans, the hiss of steam, the shouts of cooks, blurred together into a wall of noise. But over it all, I heard the distinct slam of heavy boots on tile. The intruder was inside. "Keep going!" Daniel shouted from behind us. His voice cut through the chaos like a knife. I didn't dare look back, but I knew he had stayed behind, trying to slow the man down. I heard the scrape of a metal tray being thrown, the crash of dishes shattering on the floor, followed by a grunt of anger. Daniel was buying us time, but time was running out. The door was so close I could almost touch it. But before we reached it, another figure burst into the kitchen from the dining room. My stomach dropped. It was the second man. He spotted us immediately, his eyes locking on me like a predator. He barked something to his partner, and they both started toward us. My mom's hand pressed harder against Maya's back. "Faster!" she urged, her voice a mix of fear and fierce determination. I pushed my legs harder, but the kitchen seemed endless. The cooks had frozen mid-motion, their eyes wide, some clutching utensils as if they wanted to help but didn't know how. We reached the final stretch. The glowing exit sign was directly above us now. My hand reached out, fingers brushing the cold metal of the push bar. Relief surged through me for a split second, until I heard the footsteps pounding closer. I shoved the door open with all my strength. The metal bar gave way, and the cool night air rushed in. Maya stumbled through first, then my mom, but as I started to push out, a rough hand clamped down on my arm and yanked me back. I screamed. The alley outside blurred as fear shot through me like lightning. The man had caught me. His grip was iron, his face inches from mine, his teeth bared in a twisted grin. "Where do you think you're going?" he hissed. My mom's voice split the air. "Let her go!" She lunged forward, grabbing onto my other arm, pulling me with all her strength. Maya was crying, shouting my name. For a terrifying moment, I was caught between them, my arm burning as I fought against his grip. Then Daniel appeared out of nowhere. He barreled into the man with the force of someone who had nothing left to lose. They slammed into a counter, sending pots and utensils clattering to the floor. The man's grip broke, and I stumbled free, my knees nearly buckling. "Go!" Daniel shouted again, his voice raw. He was on the ground now, wrestling with the man, trying to pin him down. The second intruder lunged forward, but one of the cooks shoved a rolling cart into his path, knocking him sideways. The kitchen erupted into chaos. Yells, crashes, the smell of something burning. My mom yanked me through the doorway, slamming the emergency exit shut behind us. We spilled into the alley, gasping for air. The night was cool and sharp against my overheated skin. Maya clung to me, sobbing into my shoulder, while my mom held both of us close, her arms shaking as much as mine. But the danger wasn't over. The sound of the door banging from the inside echoed in the alley. They were trying to follow us. Then headlights swept across the brick wall, and the screech of tires filled the air. A police cruiser pulled up fast, sirens wailing. 2 officers jumped out, guns drawn, shouting commands. The banging on the kitchen door stopped instantly. Whoever was inside must have realized their time was up. The officers rushed past us into the building, shouting for the suspects to get on the ground. The alley was suddenly filled with flashing red and blue lights, painting the walls with their glow. I stood frozen, my chest heaving, my body trembling so violently I thought I might collapse. Daniel stumbled out moments later, one side of his shirt torn, his face pale with exhaustion. He looked at us and managed a small, tired smile. "You made it," he said, his voice hoarse. I wanted to thank him, to tell him he had saved our lives, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I just nodded, tears spilling down my face. The officers returned with the 2 men in handcuffs, their expressions dark and furious. Seeing them restrained should have made me feel safe, but instead it sent another chill down my spine. These men had walked into a crowded restaurant with purpose, and that purpose had been us. I didn't know why, but I knew it wasn't random. As the police loaded them into the cruiser, Maya whispered, "They would have hurt us. I know they would have." My mom hugged us both tighter, her voice breaking. "We're okay. That's what matters. We're okay." But even as she said it, I knew this night had changed everything. The restaurant, once warm and comforting, had become the place where I learned how quickly safety could vanish, and how sometimes a stranger's warning is the only reason you survive. When the flashing red and blue lights faded and the restaurant grew quiet again, the weight of what had just happened finally sank in. I sat on the curb outside with my mom and Maya pressed against me, our bodies still trembling from the adrenaline. The night air felt colder now, every sound sharper. I kept replaying the moment the man's hand had grabbed me, the roughness of his grip, the way his words had cut into me like a knife. It didn't feel real that I was sitting here free, with my family alive and unharmed. Daniel leaned against the wall a few feet away, his shirt torn, his face sweaty and pale. Even then, he still tried to smile, though it was clear he was exhausted. One of the officers spoke with him, taking his statement, while another sat down next to me and gently asked questions. "Do you know these men? Did they speak to you before?" I shook my head again and again. "No, I've never seen them in my life." That was the truth, but the truth didn't make me feel safer. The police explained that the men were connected to robberies at local restaurants and businesses. They had been intimidating owners, threatening staff, and sometimes targeting customers. That night, for reasons no one could fully explain, they had set their sights on us. Daniel had noticed them outside before we even arrived. He recognized their faces from previous incidents and knew the moment they walked in that something bad was about to happen. His decision to slip me that note was what gave us a chance. My mom sat with her arm around me, her voice breaking as she whispered, "If he hadn't warned us." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We all knew how it could have ended. Maya, usually so sarcastic and playful, was uncharacteristically quiet. Her face was buried in my shoulder, and she clung to me like she was afraid I might vanish if she let go. When the officers finally said we could leave, my mom thanked Daniel over and over, her eyes filled with tears. He waved it off with humility, saying, "I just did what anyone should do." But I knew better. Not everyone would have risked themselves the way he had. He didn't just warn us. He fought for us, buying us the precious seconds we needed to get out. The drive home was silent, except for Maya's soft sniffles in the back seat. I stared out the window at the passing streetlights, each glow reminding me of how fragile normalcy could be. Just hours earlier, we had been laughing over pasta, celebrating my mom's promotion. It was supposed to be a perfect night. Instead, it had turned into a memory that would never leave us. At home, my dad, who had been working late, rushed to meet us at the door. The moment he saw our shaken faces, he pulled us into his arms without asking a single question. My mom's voice cracked as she told him what happened, and his jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. But when he looked at me and Maya, his expression softened. "You're safe. That's all that matters," he said, holding us like he would never let go. That night, none of us slept. We sat together in the living room, the TV playing softly in the background, though none of us were really watching it. Maya curled up under a blanket, still trembling, while my mom and dad whispered to each other about what the police had told them. I sat there in the middle of it all, feeling both fragile and grateful. Fragile, because I had learned how quickly safety could be ripped away. Grateful, because despite everything, we were still together. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. His face, his urgency, his bravery, it stayed with me. When we went back to the restaurant to thank him again, he just smiled and said, "You don't owe me anything. Just take care of each other." That line stuck in my heart. It reminded me that even in the darkest moments, there are people in this world willing to stand up, even for strangers. The lesson I carried from that night was simple but powerful. Danger doesn't always announce itself. It can appear in the middle of a celebration, in a place you thought was safe. But just as true is this: sometimes the smallest actions, like a waiter slipping a note, can mean the difference between tragedy and survival. Now, whenever I sit in a restaurant, I find myself scanning the room, my instincts sharper than they used to be. It isn't paranoia, it's awareness. That night changed me. It showed me the value of trust, the importance of listening when someone sees danger before you do, and the strength of family when everything feels like it's falling apart. I will never forget the sound of Daniel's voice when he said, "Now." That single word saved our lives, and I'll never forget how my mom's steady hand, my sister's trembling grip, and a stranger's bravery carried us through the scariest night of my life. If you want more stories that keep you on the edge of your seat and make you think about the strength of family and strangers, make sure to subscribe to my channel and comment where you're watching from.